We are following breaking news in Venezuela, where right now search and rescue crews are in a desperate search for survivors. Two powerful back-to-back earthquakes slammed the country less than a minute apart, forcing people to flee from their homes in fear as buildings shook and collapsed around them. At least 164 people are confirmed dead, with nearly 1,000 others injured. But acting President Delcy Rodriguez warns that toll will almost certainly rise. The epicenters of the 7.2 and 7.5 magnitude quakes, which are the strongest to strike Venezuela in more than a century, were about 100 miles west of the capital, Caracas, and they could be felt as far as the Amazon in Brazil, more than 1,000 miles away. A state of emergency is in effect, with Rodriguez calling the La Guaira region a disaster zone, and help is on its way from the U.S., Mexico, Qatar, and other nations. Secretary of State Marco Rubio pledging search and rescue teams, medical resources, and humanitarian assistance. Let's go right to a reporter who's there on the ground for us, Maria Alesia Sosa, who is there live in Caracas, and Adelis Ferro, president of the Venezuelan American Caucus in South Florida, who has family there on the ground as well. But Maria, I'll start with you. I know that things are very challenging there right now. There's likely a little bit of a delay between us because of that. But tell me as soon as you can hear what it is like and what is happening on the ground right now.
Antonia, good afternoon. As you say, the situation here is devastating. We are in the ground feeling how people are taking this horrible double earthquake. Right now, we are in the financial center of Caracas and in front of one of those piles, of one of those buildings, a 20-story building that completely collapsed. Rescuers and volunteers are desperately working against the clock, trying to get people out of that rubble. They have rescued at least 20 people from that pile, but they're still working against everything. They do not have the machinery. They do not have the resources. Remember, this is a country that has been in crisis, humanitarian crisis, for more than 20 years. Hospitals are in the worst conditions, so it's really hard for Venezuelans to encounter this situation right now. Thousands of people have lost their homes here in Caracas, and especially in the coastal area of La Guaira. What we're hearing of that area is truly horrible. Also, the replicas of these double earthquakes are being very strong and scary. So people are scared to go back to their homes because they have all these damages in their structures, in their buildings. So it's truly a very hard situation. And we are scared that those numbers, those figures will only increase as time goes by.
Adelis, what is it like for you right now? I know that your mom and your sister are there. Have you been able to talk to them? And what do you know about what they're going through?
Yesterday, after the earthquakes were at around 6:05 p.m., and I was able to communicate with them after almost 3 hours of trying to get the call through. It was a very, very difficult time, but we are one of the luckiest the lucky ones. We are people that were able to get out of the buildings in Caracas safely. My sister has a cut on her forehead, but she is fine, considering what everyone else is living right now in many places, especially in La Guaira, especially in some part of Caracas and other cities, Valencia, etc. We are very fortunate.
Where are people sleeping? Where are they getting food in the midst of all of this?
Well, last night, thousands and thousands of people, especially people who live in buildings in Caracas, slept inside of their cars. They just got their cars in the middle of the streets. At least that happens in the neighborhood where my mother and my sister lives, in Manzanares, in the northeast of Caracas, and they just decided to sleep inside of their cars. And actually, there were no cars going through the streets because there were so many cars parking and doing the same. They actually didn't sleep that much because they were, as Maria Alesia said, there have been several very strong aftershocks, but they are okay. And people are still on the streets looking for actually engineers to check the buildings and to make sure that it's safe for them eventually to go back to their apartments. My sister lives in a 13th floor. So it is really hard for them to make the decision to go back in without knowing that it's safe enough to claim 13th floor of stairs to go back to their apartment.
Can I ask you very quickly about what's happening with the internet there and why it's so challenging to get in touch with people sometimes? I think Americans might be wondering, especially because the U.S. has been so involved in its efforts to change their political and economic situation. I think we would have thought by now, months into this, that there'd be more resources on the ground so that there was connection and conversation.
Thank you for that question. There is something that the United States government can do right now that costs nothing and definitely will save lives. We are asking and urging, respectfully, urging the U.S. government to use its direct channels with the Venezuelan regime to press Venezuelan interim authorities to immediately lift the blockade on independent news websites, social media platforms like X, and communication networks. Because since July 2024, when the fraudulent elections Maduro said he won happened, they block the access of all of these news websites, even X. And the only way for Venezuelans to get some information, because we don't have free news channels or outlets right now, is through social media and through these websites. Let me tell you this. The only way, at least my family got some real information of the magnitude and what was going on, it was because I told them. They were in darkness regarding information. And as them, millions and millions. Maria Alesia can tell you more about this. This is just some, if there is a moment to leave this blockade, it's right now. And I think the US government can help us to do that.
Adelis Ferro, thank you so much for sharing some of your family's story, for just sharing these harrowing details. I know that you're probably very busy and you need to be in touch with your family and you've got a lot that you're working on. I also want to extend my thanks again to Maria Alesia Sosa, who joined us on the ground there in incredibly dire circumstances for herself as well. So thank you to you both.